very good afternoon and welcome to Africa Today. I am Ainan Lubem. First, let's talk the headlines. On the headlines, FG summons varsity councils, vice-chancellors. On the West African scene, Ghana reinstates suspended Sekodi Takoradi. South Sudan's former rebels join unified army. On sports, Kolka hopes to learn from Perlu. And now the news in detail. President Muhammadu Buhari has assured Nigerians that the nation's governing party, All Progressives Congress, that is the APC, will continue to give strong political institutions that reflect their choices through non-interference in elections. President Buhari cited the outcome of the polls in Ekiti, Anambra and Osun states as positive indicators. He stated this when he received members of the Progressive Governors Forum, that is PGF, led by the forum's chairman and governor of Kebbi State, Atiku Bagudu, at the State House in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. President Buhari said under his leadership, the ruling party would continue to respect Nigerians by ensuring that their votes count and the people's voice matter in choosing political leaders at different levels. For the forthcoming 2023 elections, President Buhari said the government would also ensure that Nigerians do not get intimidated by those in positions or the more privileged. The chairman of the PGF, Atiku Bagudu, thanked the president for his leadership guided by wisdom and foresight, affirming that Nigerian economy had been growing despite challenges. The federal government of Nigeria has invited pro-chancellors, vice-chancellors and chairmen of governing councils of federal universities to a meeting in Abuja on September 6 as part of efforts to resolve the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. The meeting was convened by the National Universities Commission, that is NUC, which stated that participants would review actions of the government on the strike. The letter inviting the heads of universities to the meeting was signed by the NUC's Deputy Executive Secretary Administration, Chris Meyaki, and obtained by news correspondents on Tuesday. This came to the fore as the strike by Asuu continues to get tense amid the decision of the government lecturers to declare a comprehensive industrial action. Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Education, Goodluck Opia, said the government had done much for the education sector, especially for the universities, during his presentation to the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TET Fund. Many groups and individuals are unhappy at the disagreement between the federal government of Nigeria and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, that is Asuu. Among them, the Arewa transformational leaders led by Yusuf Ibrahim have described it as a national tragedy. Speaking in Abuja, the group expressed concern that the continuous closure of universities will give room for more Nigerian youth to be recruited into the fold of bandits, especially in the north.
I portray evidence to prove that agreement between them and federal government are not meant. In a situation like that, warning strike is not seen as any way of showing flexing torso between them and federal government.
Education is one of the responsibilities of government. If you go to that very page where you have, the state objectives in our constitution, education is a right to Nigerian citizens.
Also speaking, some of the undergraduates lamented the consequences of the prolonged strike action.
They're not thinking about our future. They're not thinking about what we're supposed to do with our lives. I think that's the only reason why you go on indefinite strike, knowing that you are not the ones suffering it.
In the same vein, the president of the National Association of Nigerian Students, that is NANS, Sunday Asefon, accused Asuu of being the enemy of Nigerian students.
How reckless, how heartless, and how Asuu leadership do not consider the interests of Nigerian students. It has really shown clearly now that Asuu is indeed an enemy of Nigerian students.
Away from educational matters now to health, where the Nigerian Red Cross Society Kano State branch has confirmed that one person died at the hospital among the 9 victims so far rescued alive after the collapse of the 3-story building at Beirum GSM Market on Tuesday evening. The secretary of the branch, Musa Abdullahi, who confirmed the death, however, said a staff of the Kano Electricity Distribution Company had also lost his life in the disaster. Similarly, the National Emergency Management Agency, that is NEMA, has confirmed that one person died among the 8 victims that were taken to Murtala Muhammad Specialist Hospital. In a statement issued by Manzo Ezekiel, head NEMA Press Unit Abuja, said so far as of 9:10 p.m. Tuesday night, 8 persons have been rescued and taken to Murtala Muhammad Specialist Hospital. According to Manzo, NEMA search and rescue team from the agency's Kano Territorial Office was also deployed to the scene to reinforce and coordinate the rescue operations. Also in a statement by the Kano Fire Service Public Relations Officer, Saminu Abdullahi, the agency said 8 victims had been successfully rescued. When we return, news from other parts of West Africa. Don't go away. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now to news from other parts of West Africa. Ghanaian President Akufo-Addo has reinstated the suspended Sekondi Takoradi Metropolitan Chief Executive, that is the MCE. This was contained in a letter signed by the local government minister, Daniel Botwe, today. According to the letter, his reinstatement followed a recommendation by the Western Regional Coordinating Council. President Akufo-Addo ordered Munim Issa to step aside for investigations to proceed after he allegedly assaulted a police officer verbally. The alleged verbal assault occurred after he was arrested for flouting road traffic regulations on February 3. Abdul Mumun Issa was heard threatening the police officer with a transfer, among other things. The National Movement of the Liberation of Azawad MNLA, one of the main armed groups operating in northern Mali, has reaffirmed its commitment to a merger of the armed groups of ex-rebels who signed a peace agreement with Bamako in 2015. The movement made a declaration at a meeting held in Kidal in the north of the country. The latest move intends to bring a merger into a single unit with a common political objective. This Congress comes just days after the announcement by the Malian authorities to integrate 26,000 ex-rebels into the National Army. We now move to other parts of Africa. After this break, stay with us. Welcome back, and now to news from other parts of Africa. Tigrayan forces in Ethiopia's embattled northern region have accused the government of conducting drone strikes in the regional capital, Mekelle. The government has not yet responded to the accusation, but it had previously warned people to stay away from what it called military targets. According to the UN, airstrikes conducted last week in Mekelle killed civilians, including children. A senior Tigrayan figure said in a tweet that at least 3 bombs were dropped in the city and a hospital was among the targets in the latest strikes. An ongoing communications blackout has made it difficult to get detailed, reliable information. Meanwhile, fighting on the ground has continued to intensify a week after the resumption of violence following a 5-month truce. The United Nations, that is the UN, says the renewed clashes have been displacing thousands of people in border areas in Amhara and Afar, the neighboring regions where the fighting is concentrated. Under Secretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs expressed concern at the stalemate in Libya following recent clashes in Tripoli between rival factions vying for power. Speaking before the Security Council in New York, Rosemary DiCarlo denounced efforts from pro-Bashaga forces of trying to take the capital from the east.
I am deeply concerned that the ongoing stalemate and continued delays in implementing the electoral process pose a growing threat to security in and around Tripoli and potentially to all Libyans. The United Nations has consistently underscored that the conduct of elections remains the only way to break the current impasse. Despite our continued efforts, no progress has been made on forging a consensus on a constitutional framework for the elections.
The Libyan ambassador Taher El-Suni to the United Nations reaffirmed the lack of progress and continued suffering on the ground. Clashes over last weekend in Tripoli recorded at least 32 deaths as well as considerable material damage. Thousands of former rebels swore an oath of loyalty in a ceremony held under tight security in South Sudan. Nearly 22,000 men and women drawn from the main parties as well as the South Sudan Opposition Alliance participated in Tuesday's proceedings, which were originally scheduled to take place in 2019 according to the peace deal. South Sudan's President Salva Mayardit praised the progress made. Also, the United Nations representative in the country praised the new developments.
Out of all the chapters of the agreement, the graduation of the unified forces under Chapter 2 has been the most challenging and yet the most important.
Over 200 of your comrades have died in the 18 training centers.
The ceremony came weeks after the country's leaders appointed to run a transitional government announced that they would remain in power 2 years beyond an agreed deadline, sparking international concern. Since achieving independence from Sudan, the world's youngest nation has launched from crisis to crisis, battling flooding, hunger, ethnic violence, and political turmoil. Up next is business news after this break. Welcome back, and now to business news. Statistics from the Central Bank of Nigeria, that is the CBN, crude oil revenue crashed by 29% in the first quarter of 2022. The CBN, in its latest economic and statistical report for the first quarter of 2022, stated that earnings from crude oil dropped to 790 billion naira from 1.1 trillion naira recorded in the previous quarter, which was from October to December 2021. Nigeria's crude oil and gas earnings in the first quarter of 2022 was also 17.1% lower than the 956 billion naira revenue recorded in the same period in 2021. According to the report, oil revenue for the first quarter of 2022 accounted for 38% of the country's gross revenue, which stood at 2 trillion naira in the period under review, while non-oil revenue at 1.1 trillion naira accounted for 62% of total earnings. In comparison, in the fourth quarter of 2021, oil revenue accounted for 46% of gross revenue, same as the first quarter of 2021. In January 2022, Nigeria earned 330 billion naira. The country raked in 199 billion naira and 261 billion naira in February and March 2022, respectively. A further breakdown of the earnings showed that in the first quarter of 2022, earnings from crude oil sales stood at 153 billion naira compared to 234 billion naira and 412 billion naira recorded in the fourth and fifth quarter of 2021 respectively. Up next on Africa Today is sports news. Stay with us.
Lovely afternoon it is, and welcome to Sport News on Africa Today. I am Richard Badung. On Sport News, Commonwealth Games women's long jump champion Asuu Brumer on Tuesday claimed the bronze medal in the event at the Palo Città della Quercia meet in Rovereto, Italy. It was Brumer's first action back on the field since reclaiming the Commonwealth Games title in Birmingham. After two attempts, the Nigerian had placed second place, jumping 6.37 meters. That was not to earn Brumer a silver medal as she finished third in the contest, jumping a mark of 6.53 meters on her fifth attempt. A 6.53 meters jump was far from her record-breaking 7.00 meters jump at the last Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, where she won a gold medal. Former European under-20 long jump champion and Serbian Mili A. Gardasevic won the event as she leapt a mark of 6.78 meter, while Jasmine Sawyers of England jumped 6.73 meter to secure the second spot. Still talking sports, ahead of the double-header international friendly match against the United States women national team, head coach of Super Falcons, Randy Waldrum, has invited 20 players to camp. Both teams are scheduled to meet in a two-leg friendly match slated for Kansas City and Washington, D.C. on the 3rd and 5th of September 2022. The American gaffer released the list of 20 players on Wednesday, and 4 players from the Falconets team featured prominently on the list. Nigeria women's under-20 team was praised for their gallant performance in the just concluded FIFA Under-20 World Cup in Costa Rica, despite the team failing to go beyond the quarterfinal. Expected to join the Super Falcons is the team skipper Tosin Demei, led the list of the players, which also had midfielder Esther Oyenezide, Deborah Abiodun and Rafiat Imuron. The duo of Alimat Ayinde and Ngozi Okobi missed out due to visa issues, while the duo of Onome Ebi and Asisat Oshola are yet to fully recover from injury. Before we go, Sierra Leone captain Stephen Koka has said he hopes to learn from his new manager Andre Pello at Faith Karagumuruk to help with his long-time goal of becoming a coach. The former Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool defender, 30, has signed a 2-year deal with Turkish Super League side after terminating his contract with rivals Fenerbahce. He was close to joining Championship side Blackburn Rovers before opting to sign for Istanbul-based outfit Karagumuruk. The 43-year-old coached Juventus in 2020-2021 before moving to Karagumuruk in June. Koka switched allegiance to Sierra Leone, the country of his paternal grandfather, last year and played in January's Africa Cup of Nations finals in Cameroon, where he featured in all 3 group matches against Algeria, Ivory Coast and Equatorial Guinea. And that's the sport news on Africa Today. I'm Richard Badung. Back to Lubem Island for the rest of the news.
Wonderful news from the sport department led by Richard Badung. And back to the rest of the news. 200 level students of the Kwara State University, Malete, Kwara State, Tobiloba Daniel and Arewa Abayomi have been found dead in their room in a hostel outside the premises of the institution. News merchants gathered that Daniel and Abayomi were studying for the ongoing examination in the institution when they decided to go to the hostel to continue preparation for the exams the next day. Correspondents gathered that the school management was immediately informed about the development, and the police division in the area, who detailed policemen to evacuate the corpses to the mortuary. Reacting to the development, the director University Relations, Saidat Aliyu, who confirmed the incident, said the university security was yet to give official details on the sad development. However, the State Police Public Relations Officer Okesami Ajayi, while confirming the incident, said the command had commenced an investigation. And that's Africa Today, but before we go, here are the headlines once again. On the headlines, we told you FG summons Varsity Council's Vice-Chancellors. Ghana reinstates suspended Sekudi Takoradi. We also brought to the fore on other parts of Africa that South Sudan's former rebels join Unified Army. On sports, we'll let you know that Kolka hopes to learn from Perlo. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Hughes TV, Instagram at Hughes TV, watch our YouTube channel at Hughes TV. I am Ainan Lubem. Thank you for watching.